Hello everyone, this is Mikey Garcia.
Yo, it's your boy, the odd guy himself, Malik Scott.
Hi, I'm Charlie Edwards.
This is Fast Eddie Chambers, and you're listening to the BoxHard Podcast with my main man, Joey Coastman.
Hello everybody and welcome to the 7th edition of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm your host Joey Coastman. I'm joined today as always by Ayaz Sumra. Ayaz, how you doing?
I'm good, Joey. How are you?
Very good, very good. Okay, we're going to get into the first part of the show. This part is called the review. Every week we bring you the review and preview, where we review the fights from last weekend and we preview the fights coming up this weekend. There's also a midweek show this weekend as well on the Wednesday night. But yeah, we're going to start with the review side of things. On the Friday night, there was a few cards on the Friday night, some in USA, some in UK. We're going to start with the UK. Miles Shinkwin moved to 12-0. He fought Daniel Bilisansky. He stopped him in the 5th round, TKO. Georgie Keane was also on that bill, and I'm disappointed to say that he lost. He got TKO'd in the 2nd round against Nathan McIntosh, who was an unbeaten fighter. But Georgie Keane, who was one of Frank Warren's prospects a while back, 2 losses now. He's only had 8 fights, so his record's now 6-2. So massive fault in the storm there. Prince Patel was also on the bill. He moved to 3-0 with a point win. That was really it for that show. In Wales, there was a professional debut of world champion boxer Lee Selby's brother, Andrew Selby, who's a cracking amateur. Andrew Selby, it was weird because he was actually in an 8-rounder on his debut. We don't see a lot of fighters go into an 8-rounder on their debut, but he did, and he stopped the guy in 4 rounds of TKO. The guy he was facing, just like a journeyman, but it's good to get a good win. He fought really, really well. Good shots to the body and the head. Fantastic display there from Selby in his first fight. We'll move out to Florida now. Orlando, the venue. Malik Scott against Tony Thompson. Now, this fight wasn't shown on UK TV. I had to stream it somewhere. In fact, you could stream it from the website directly. I don't think I told you about that, Ayaz. Sorry about that.
Joey, no worries.
Yeah, because you could. It was on Bounce TV, and you could actually go on to bouncetv.com, and they were streaming it off of their website. It was free and everything like that. But you need to see that fight if you haven't seen it, Ayaz.
I'm actually going to watch this fight. I heard it was a very interesting fight.
Yeah, it was. Malik Scott came out in the early rounds. He was fighting. Let's say more aggressive than he usually does. He was coming forward. I say he was coming forward. He was coming forward for the first few rounds, but he was on the back foot a lot, just boxing on the back foot, which he's very good at. And he was showing his skills and his lateral movement. A lot of the times, Tony Thompson sort of trapped him on the ropes, and Malik Scott was just ducking under it and then hitting him, making him miss a lot. And it looked very good. It was a good display by Malik Scott. But again, Tony Thompson, he's 44. So, he's an old man in the sport now. Been in a lot of big fights. But, we don't know how solid he is at this age now. But, yeah, Malik Scott, it was a good win for him. Although he was knocked down in the 9th round, this was a temple shot from Tony Thompson. But, yeah, nonetheless, Malik Scott picked up his 38th win professionally. It was only a 10-rounder. But, yeah, he won unanimously. So it was a good win for him. What do you think his future holds, Ayaz?
Malik Scott?
Yeah.
I reckon he's got a couple of fights left in him. Obviously, Tony Thompson, I was just reading an article. He wanted a 3rd showdown with Vladimir Klitschko. Now, that looks like it's gone down the drain. With Malik Scott, I can see him fight someone like a Huey Fury.
That'd be interesting, definitely.
But we'll see what happens, innit? Who he wants to fight next. Because he hasn't really called out a fight, has he?
No, I don't really. Well, I say he's not really that type of guy to call someone out, but he is. He called out Antonio Tarver before this fight, but he ended up not getting that fight. He's a good fighter. The thing about him is he doesn't possess such a knockout punch, such a big punch. He's a bit feather-fisted for a heavyweight, to be honest with you. I mean, he's got a few knockouts, but he hasn't got much power. Again, he's very, very dangerous, though, because he can fight southpaw and orthodox, and very well. A lot of people can fight, naturally orthodox, but they can fight southpaw, but they're not as good. He is literally as good. A lot of people haven't seen this in his fights, but in the gym, I know what he's like. And again, good boxing skill, good jab. He was letting his right hand go a lot, which is something I haven't actually seen from him for quite a while. Tony Thompson is top opposition. Let's have it right, even though he's 44. Yeah, I'd like to see Malik Scott in there against someone, like maybe a prospect coming up, something like that, just to see. But he is very tricky, he's a bit of a nightmare. But also, he did get knocked down by Tony Thompson. And Tony Thompson, he hit him on the temple and he went down. And it's not exactly the same shot, but the same place, the same temple that Deontay Wilder stopped Malik Scott in the first round with the same area, so the same sort of punch. Obviously it was a completely different punch, but he hit him in the same area of the temple and he knocked him down in the first round. And then Tony Thompson done the same punch and hit him with it in the 9th round and knocked him down. So I'm not sure. And obviously we saw him get stopped against Chisora as well, and Chisora hit him with the same sort of punch. I think he's been knocked down 3 times, against Chisora, against Tony Thompson now, and also against Deontay Wilder, and all 3 of them have been temple shots. It's a bit worrying, to be honest, getting hit in the temple. Ayaz, what do you think the future of Tony Thompson holds? What sort of future does he hold?
He's still got a couple of fights left in him as well. Obviously, we know that he's beaten David Price twice actually, but I reckon he's got a couple of fights left in him. Fighting Vladimir, I don't think so. That's going to happen.
No, I don't. I wouldn't even want to see that. I mean, that would just be, I wouldn't say that fight goes over 2 rounds now. I think Tony Thompson seems to have aged overnight, kind of thing. He beat Solis not a long while ago, and now his performance was pretty terrible, to be honest. He was in bad shape. He just didn't look like he was up for it. But moving over to Massachusetts, there was another show over there. A couple of weeks back, Stephen Ormond was fighting on the same card as Gary Spike O'Sullivan. They both got knockout wins. This time, Stephen Ormond was back on the bill, and he got another knockout win. He defeated Orlando Vasquez. Orlando Vasquez had a record of 18-6. He's now 18-7, and Stephen Ormond picked up his 20th win. He's now 20-2. So, 2 knockouts literally within about 2 or 3 weeks. So good stuff for Stephen Ormond. Is there anything else to add, Ayaz? Any news this week at all?
No, there's not much really news until Wednesday. We got that big fight in Russia.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in the preview part of the show. So I think that's it for the review part of the show. Okay, so we've only got one guest this week, so we're going to bring him in. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Mr. Malik King Scott. Okay, so welcome to the show, Malik. Obviously, you're in the intro. Remember, I played you the intro music, so it's the first time we've actually got a guest on who's on the intro. We've had a few guests, but no one on the intro yet, so we got the first one on. Welcome to the show. So you fought on Friday. You fought Tony Thompson.
Yeah.
How did you find it in there, Malik? Because, he's a top opposition. He's top opposition, although he's 44 now. How was it in there?
He was crafty, strong, heavy-handed, but I just knew my rhythm would be too much for him. And every time Tony got set, I just lost him with my legs and lost him with the feet every time. So it was good. And, that shit seemed like it was 2 months ago now, and it was just a couple of days ago. That's how much my mind is on to the next episode.
What do you feel like your next few fights are going to be? What sort of people do you want to face in the near future, Malik?
Who do I want to face in the near future?
Yes.
I don't really have no picks. I don't discriminate with my skills. They work on anybody and anywhere in the world.
But I know you had a bit of beef with Antonio Tarver. Do you still see him relevant now?
I definitely don't ever mind fighting Tarver because, like I said, he was a legend. I never had nothing personal with him until he came at me on a personal matter. And then, I handled it and spit my fire back at him.
I never got to ask you. Now you're back with, your amateur coach, Fred Jenkins. You split with Jesse Reed. Can you talk about that?
I split with Jesse Reed because Jesse Reed is he's a great motivator, and he was a great teacher at one time, I believe. But right now, age, Father Time has kicked in.
I also wanted to ask you, what's your personal, because I know you really like Lennox Lewis. I know you spent a lot of time with him back in the day. What's your personal favourite heavyweight of all time, Malik?
Lennox Lewis.
And that's over Muhammad Ali, Tyson, everyone like that?
No, I don't. None of them guys to me, Muhammad Ali, Mike Tyson, none of them carried Lennox Lewis jockstrap. And I mean that with all due respect, but if people want to take it out of content, then that's up to them. I really don't give a shit. But I think Lennox Lewis is like one of the best fighters to ever touch a pair of gloves, especially in the heavyweight division. He's untouchable to me.
And I wanted to get a couple of predictions for upcoming fights. I already know what you're going to say about the Brian Jennings fight. I know you're definitely backing your man there. You think he can do that?
I think it's the toughest fight of his career, but I also think that Jennings is great at fighting southpaws. So I don't think the southpaw thing is going to be a problem with him, but I believe Perez is, out of all the guys he's fought at southpaw, is probably the best one and the strongest one.
There's obviously potential in the future that we could see Povetkin fight Wilder. What do you think about that?
I think it's a great fight. I think it could be a mega fight for a super bout in this modern day time in the heavyweight division. I think Deontay going to rise to the occasion and beat Povetkin the same way that he beat Stavern.
For the people that are listening to this that don't know why I'm asking you all these fights for your predictions, because a lot of people don't know, and I'm going to swear for the first time ever on this show, it pisses me off. A lot of people don't realise that Malik Scott, I'm asking him about Povetkin and Wilder. The reason I'm asking him is because, one, he's close with Wilder, he's fought Wilder, he's sparred with Wilder numerous times. And also, a lot of people won't know that he was out in Moscow sparring Povetkin, so he knows them both very well. Another fight I want to move on to, also December the 12th, Dillian White, Anthony Joshua, all British clash. How do you see that going down? Because I know you've worked with both guys in camp down at the Klitschko camp.
Mm-hmm. I think it's the biggest fight for the Brits since Lennox Lewis fought Frank Bruno. I don't know if the people are going to get behind it with that same energy as they did when Lennox and Bruno fought, but I know it's just as big as a fight.
Another thing I wanted to mention, Vladimir Klitschko faces Tyson Fury the 28th of this month. How do you see that one going, Malik?
I think Tyson Fury got a great chance in the fight, more than people give him. I think, of course, Vladimir is the best he's ever fought. I think it's a great fight, but we're going to see. This is Judgment Day for Tyson Fury.
Fair enough. And I just wanted to ask you if I know that you're a fan of boxing as well. You pay attention to the sport as well as participate in it. An Irish kid has come over, signed with Al Heyman recently, been boxing on PBC shows. Carl Frampton. Have you heard much about this guy, Malik?
Yeah, I've seen him fight. I think he can fight his ass off. I think it's a real deal. He's battle tested, but I believe still his best is yet to come.
For the people that don't know, you fighting out of the Goosen gym. There's a lot of champions training with you. What are some of the champions that perhaps people don't know that train side by side with you? And you haven't got to mention OG Sampson. We know he's a big champion in his own right.
Yeah. Well, lately I haven't been actually at Joe Goosen gym, but Joe Goosen is like my brother. We have more in common than just boxing. Actually, the things me and Joe are tight through is not even through boxing. It's through just the general facts of life things and, being a great person and being aware of politics and being aware of life and family. We have a tight relationship more through that than boxing.
Yeah, because, when I FaceTimed you earlier, I noticed that it didn't look like the Goosen gym. What gym was that you was in, Malik?
That's my Focus Paradise gym. That's like UFC gym is in Santa Clarita, California. It's almost like God created the gym and put it literally almost, 2 blocks away from my house because he knew how focused I was or I am, and he know the type of privacy I like when I'm training.
All right then, Malik. Yeah, well, I sang you out of the show. Thanks for coming on. Good to hear from you finally from all this time.
All right, bro. Then I'm on Sunset Boulevard about to finish my cigar. I'm with my photographer. We're just going over the plans and expect to see big things from me in the future. Tony Thompson was just an appetizer. He was another statistic on my road to redemption, and I can't wait to continue to prove people wrong.
Well said. Thank you very much for coming on the show, Malik.
All right, baby.
Okay, now it's time for the second part of the show. This part's the preview, where we preview the fights coming up this weekend. And also, like I said, there was a show on Wednesday as well. So on Wednesday, Alexander Povetkin, he fights Mariusz Wach. Alexander Povetkin 29-1, obviously the one loss to Vladimir Klitschko. He fights Mariusz Wach. Mariusz Wach 31-1. So this should be a very, very good fight. Mariusz Wach is regarded as having one of the best chins in heavyweight boxing. How do you see this fight going, Ayaz?
Povetkin is probably most likely to be the winner, right? But Mariusz Wach could be a danger man. And you know, in boxing, like anything can happen, right? So it could be a knockout, it could be a split decision, it could be a major upset. But in my opinion, if I have to give it, I'll probably give it to Povetkin to win the fight.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that Povetkin, he should win the fight. Thing about Wach, you know, I haven't really seen much of him. I don't think he's been inactive. Well, I know he hasn't been inactive. He's had 2 fights this year. One of the guys he fought was basically a bit of a journeyman. You know, he didn't even knock him out of there. He got him out. He won unanimously after 10 rounds, and then he stopped. This was back in June. He fought Konstantin Erich, who we saw Joshua fight, and he stopped him in 6 rounds, TKO. He's had 2 fights this year, so that's quite good. But, you know, a lot of his fights are in Poland. His last 4 fights have been in Poland, so I haven't really seen any of these fights. Obviously, he lost to Vladimir as well, so both these guys are, you know, Vladimir's beaten both of them. As Klitschko would brand them, they're both Klitschko losers. But it should be a good fight. It should be a good fight. But Mariusz Wach, he is actually one of the tallest heavyweights in boxing. To be honest, he's 6'7.5". So the height's going to be with him. But we'll see, because remember, Povetkin, he's a bit regarded as a short heavyweight. He's only 6'2". But you know, we'll see, because he's a great fighter, Povetkin, and I do want to see him fight Deontay Wilder. Also down that bill, Denis Lebedev, he fights Latif Coyote. Latif Coyote 21-0. He fights Denis Lebedev 27-2. This is for the WBA World Cruiserweight title. That's really it for the Wednesday. We're going to move over to Saturday now. We're going to go over to Ireland. There's a card over there. Top of the bill, Jamie Cox 19-0. He faces Ferenc Albert, who's 20-7, and that's for Jamie's WBO European Super Middleweight title. Also moving down that bill, there's a little bit of a grudge match. It's for the vacant Irish welterweight title. That's Peter McDonough. He fights Dean Byrne. That should be a good fight. And also the reschedule of the longly awaited fight between Ian Timms and Michael Sweeney. A little bit of rivalry between those guys. Also on that bill, Jamie Conlon, he looks to move to 15-0, and Vijender Singh, he gets out for his second pro fight. He fights Dean Gillen, who's unbeaten in 2 fights. There's also 2 more fights I want to mention. Jamie Kavanagh, he looks to pick up his 20th win. His opponent hasn't been announced yet. And big sexy Sean Turner looks to move to 7-0. That's it for Ireland. We're going to move over to Monaco now. Ruslan Provodnikov, he fights Jesus Rodriguez. Jesus Rodriguez, unbeaten in 14 contests. He fights Ruslan Provodnikov 24-4. Remember, last week we had Ruslan Provodnikov's foe, Mauricio Herrera, on the show. What do you think Provodnikov's future holds, Ayaz? Because remember, he's got 4 losses now. Obviously, you know, and some of his losses, he's lost pretty badly, you know.
Provodnikov's future holds quite good. Recently, he split up with Freddie Roach, right? And he's recently actually joined with Joe Diaz. And I was reading a couple of articles like him fighting Manny Pacquiao in his Manny Pacquiao's last fight. Or like how he called out Amir to fight Amir Khan. But I reckon he's actually got a couple of big fights left in him.
To be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if that fight did get made, Amir Khan against Provodnikov. You know, Amir Khan, one thing you cannot knock Amir Khan for is he does fight these people, these dog fight type of opponents, you know what I mean? Like, he's been in there with Maidana. He's been in there with loads of different boxers that are really, you know, hard to beat fighters. He doesn't make it easy on himself. Do you know what I mean? There's nothing, even if you're a Brook fan or you're a Khan fan, but even if you're a Brook fan and you're listening, you can't knock the sort of caliber of opponents that Khan has fought. He really has fought the big boys. But Provodnikov, do you not think he was slightly overrated, Ayaz?
I think he's overrated. Do you know what I mean?
You reckon?
Yeah. I think he's a good fighter.
I think he's a good fighter, but like you say, he's got 4 losses on his record. Now, obviously, he's got the 1 loss to Mauricio Herrera. He's got the 1 loss to Algieri. He's got the loss to Bradley. And who was his other loss? Oh, Matisse in his last fight.
Yeah, Matisse, yeah, that's it.
Yeah, that's it, yeah. So, this is his bounce-back fight. But again, he's fighting an unbeaten fighter, and he's fighting him, you know, in a place he hasn't been before. He's never fought in Monaco. So it should be interesting. But I think he's going to probably get a win because, you know, there's a lot of hype around him, and a lot of hype can be built around him for just purely down to the way he fights. Okay, leaving that card there, we're going to move over now to United Kingdom, to our country, to the Echo Arena in Liverpool. Top of the bill, Callum Smith fights Rocky Fielding. Now, a lot of people knock Eddie Hearn for putting on all these silly fights and these, you know, all this nonsense. I think this is a really good card he's put on, by the way. This is a good fight. This is a good card in all. You know, Callum Smith, 17-0. He fights Rocky Fielding, 21-0. It's for the vacant British super middleweight title, but these fighters are both unbeaten. They're both good fighters. How do you see this fight going, Smith Fielding?
I reckon this is going to be a points win, right? But in my opinion, if I have to give it to the person that I think that's going to win it, I reckon it'll be Callum Smith.
Do you know what? It's so weird. I thought Callum Smith for a long time, but then I think Rocky's last fight he done really well, and I don't know. I think I'm gonna say if there's a knockout, it'll probably be Callum Smith who gets the knockout. If it's points, it'll probably be Rocky Fielding. I don't know. I just think it's very, very close, and you know what I mean. It's good. Like this, they're both undefeated prospects, and Eddie Hearn's, you know, he promotes them both and he's put them both in together. So a lot of people will jump off the bandwagon of the loser. Whoever loses this fight is going to be right down in the dumps, sort of thing. And everyone's going to jump on the winner's back. But we'll see. Moving down that bill, Scott Cardle, he fights Sean Dodd. Scott Cardle looks to move to 19-0. Sean Dodd, 10-1 at the moment. Ricky Burns, ex-world champion, he's also out. He fights Josh King. This is for the vacant WBO Intercontinental Lightweight title. Also, Tom Doran, he looks to move to 16-0. He fights undefeated fighter Rod Smith, who's 7-0 in his own right. O'Hara Davies, young prospect, he's back out again. He looks to move to 9-0. He fights Chris Truman. Jake Ball, he's in his 3rd professional contest, but his opponent hasn't been announced yet. But I'm looking forward to that card all in all, Ayaz. How about yourself?
I'm actually looking forward to the card. I'm with Callum Smith and Rocky Fielding and see where the winner's future holds afterwards.
Yeah, because I think they're both destined for big things, so it'll be so interesting. Also, I just want to mention in Florida, there's a little card there. Breedis Prescott's on the bill. He's fighting Claudine Lacerda. Claudine Lacerda record 17 wins, 12 losses and 1 draw. Breedis Prescott, he's now 28-7. A lot of people may not know about Breedis Prescott, but if you've been a Khan fan for a long time, you'll remember that Breedis Prescott was the first man to beat Khan. He knocked him out in the first round. Very devastating knockout. Do you remember that one, Ayaz?
I actually thought Khan was going to win the fight. And then next one I know, whack.
Yeah.
Amir Khan just like dropped to the floor.
Yeah, he was absolutely, wow, it was horrible. That was, he had that fight way too early. Okay, moving over to the Thomas and Mack Center. The Thomas and Mack Center, Las Vegas. This is becoming quite a venue for boxing now. Top of the bill, Timothy Bradley. He fights Brandon Rios. This is for the WBO World Welterweight title. This is the one that Floyd took off Manny Pacquiao when he beat Manny Pacquiao. Then he vacated it. Timothy Bradley, did he get given the title or did he fight for it? I can't remember now.
I thought it wasn't Brad. They said that it was meant to be between Saddam Ali, right, and Timothy Bradley.
I can't remember if he won it. I really can't remember if he won it or it was given him now, but my memory. But yeah, nonetheless, it's going to be a decent fight. I'm actually looking more forward to Smith Fielding than Bradley Rios. And I tell you why, because Smith Fielding, 2 young prospects, undefeated. Timothy Bradley, he's only got the 1 loss to Manny Pacquiao, but he really should have 2 losses to Manny Pacquiao. And then Brandon Rios, he's obviously got 1 loss to Pacquiao and 1 loss to Alvarado. But I just don't think that Brandon Rios has got much left. I really, really don't. I think he only beat Alvarado because Alvarado didn't take the fight seriously and he's well past his best. I mean, I don't really like to criticise fighters, but I really don't think Brandon Rios is going to probably even win 1 round. I mean, he's a warrior. He's a tough man. He comes forward. Timothy Bradley doesn't hit very hard. So, maybe the rounds will be close because I don't think his punches will stop Brandon Rios coming forward. And to be totally honest to Brandon Rios, I don't think if he was fighting a gorilla, he would stop coming forward. But how do you see that fight going, Ayaz?
In my opinion, I reckon Bradley wins the fight. And there's a rumor that the winner out of this fight could fight Kell Brook.
Yeah, there are rumors that the winner could face Kell Brook. If you were Kell Brook, if you were advising Kell Brook, who would you think would be an easier fight for Kell Brook? Come forward style like Brandon Rios, or a good boxer, a tough guy, a lot of heart, Tim Bradley?
Brandon Rios. Because Tim Bradley is a very tough fighter. He's beaten the likes of Pacquiao and Marquez, and he's got big experience with the big names. So I reckon Brandon Rios will be an easier fight for him.
Yeah, I think so too. Just because I think that, Kell Brooks, he's very, very clinical, very, very, very good at throwing punches. He throws them properly, punches through the target, and he's tough, and he's big, he's strong. I think he'd just be too precise for Brandon Rios. Whereas Bradley, I'm not saying he couldn't beat Bradley. I think he'd probably beat Bradley as well. But I think Bradley's a bit more crafty, more experienced at that type of level, even though he shouldn't have beat Pacquiao the first time, but he did. He absolutely beat Marquez easily. But moving down that bill, we've also got Vasyl Lomachenko. He's out in his 6th fight. He tries to move to 5-1. He fights Romelu Koasica 25-4. This is for the WBO World Featherweight title. I don't think it's ever going to happen, but it would have been lovely to see Lomachenko face Rigondeaux, wouldn't it?
Lomachenko's style, Rigondeaux's style, what a fight that would be.
Yeah, we'd really see something there. Okay, that concludes this week's episode of the BoxHard Podcast. I'm very sorry for the poor audio quality during this week's show. We had the one guest on. It's been a short and sweet show this week. We'll be back next week with another big show. Please find us on iTunes, on Twitter, on SoundCloud. We're all over the internet now. Thank you very much for tuning in. Thank you very much for giving us your ears, and we'll see you next week. Take care.